I happen to remember the moment that everything changed for me.
Yeah.
It was in the winter of 2003, and I had someone I really liked was killed in Iraq, and the first day actually at Baghdad airport. Was a reporter covering it, and so I felt an obligation to go see it. So I went and I spent some time there, and what I saw bore no resemblance to what I expected at all. It was chaos, and I've seen chaos a couple of times, and I'm totally opposed to chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos is what God ended when he created the world, right? So order is godly. It's a fruit of the Spirit. So I've always been opposed to chaos. So anyway, we had chaos. We created that chaos. And so I knew right away that this was bad and it would not end well. And whatever, that's it. It was not a particularly deep insight, but it was very strong. I almost got shot when I was there, and which is fine. It's not about me, but I just expected, the U.S. government runs this. Like, my family works for the government. Like, we're part of the government. We live in Washington.
Yeah.
We're part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
I know the president of the United States. I advocated for this war. I had one of the highest rated shows on TV at the time in 2003. And I felt implicated by the whole thing. Like, I didn't plan the war. I didn't think it up. I did think it was a little weird, but I still carried water for Bush as he sold this war under false pretenses. So I definitely felt like responsible a little bit. I find out that this is not what I thought at all. It's not going well. And it's clear it's not going to go well. And it didn't. So I'm flying back. I'll never forget this. Through some city. I don't even remember how I got. I was probably in Europe. And a friend of mine from the New York Times calls and says something like, "What did you think of Iraq?" And I tell him, and he writes this story in which I say, "This is a disaster. And I can't believe I supported this." So I'm sitting on the plane flying from somewhere in Europe back to Washington, and I get a text from a guy called John Podhoretz, who's now the editor of Commentary, and he was my old editor. I'd worked under him, not physically under him, thank heaven, but I had, in the chain of command, worked under him, and I never thought much of him at all. However, I did think we were involved in roughly the same project, which was like finding out what's true and then saying it out loud. And he sent me this text or maybe email that was like, "I hate you. I can't believe you've gone over to the other side. You're a bad person," attacking me personally for saying he hadn't been to Iraq, right? It had just started. He had not been there. I had. And I was just saying what I thought, which is like, holy smokes, this is bad. And he attacked me. And I remember thinking, I don't care what John Podhoretz thinks. Of course, I never have cared what John Podhoretz thinks. But I remember thinking, all this guy cares about is like some agenda that he won't say out loud. And anyone who gets in the way of that agenda, even if they're telling the truth, must be destroyed. I remember thinking, boy, we are not in the same business at all. This is not, I've been wrong a million times. I've lied. If you caught me doing something horrible, I'd probably lie about it still. I'm not a super virtuous person. I try, but I fail. So I'm not saying that I'm like a better person than him. All I'm saying is he had a different objective. And I started to look back on the stories that I had written at the behest of my editors at the Weekly Standard and other publications. And I began to realize that I had been used as, I was a good writer and I was a very aggressive writer, and I'm just an aggressive person. I've always been that way. And so they basically used that to take out some of their enemies and to push an agenda that they never bothered to describe to me. And that agenda was, of course, to serve the interests of Israel. And I had never been against Israel. I'm still not especially against Israel to this day. Yeah. I like Israel. I like visiting there. I would love to go back to Jerusalem. But I don't work for the Israeli government. I don't want to work for the Israeli government. And if you're like using me to help the Israeli government, you should at least tell me.
Yeah.
But they weren't. They were lying. And I felt, the one feeling you never get over, as many women can tell you, is the feeling of being used.
Yeah.
That is hard to get over. And I'm not mad at anyone in particular. I've forgiven everybody. But that feeling still stings to me, that I was I was a young guy. I had a ton of kids and no money. And I was like working hard, not harder than a lot of people, but I was working hard, like very hard.
Yeah.
And they used me.
Yeah.
And they always disliked me. I could always feel that. And they disliked me for reasons I had no control over. But they definitely disliked me. I didn't care, but I remember thinking, these guys are really kind of sinister. And I've been mad about it ever since. And I'm still mad when I think about it. And I'm mad, of course, not even primarily at them, but at myself for participating in this and not knowing what it was and not taking the time to figure out what it was. And then, of course, I'm mad above all at myself for taking positions that are the opposite of the ones I have today. So I will just say that my commitment, and it is an actual commitment, to apologizing for things I got wrong is real. I don't think it's unusual or weird. It's like the basis of Christianity, but it's also the basis of good parenting. And you, as you know, as the father of 7, you expect your children to do bad things because they are kids after all, and human beings. But the one thing that you ask or demand as their father is that they'll admit what they did and apologize. That's it.
And us as fathers have to do the same for them.
That's literally the only thing you can demand of your kids. It's like, you're going to screw up. Don't smoke pot. You know, you get home and your kid's clearly stoned. Okay. Are you really shocked? You know, he's a 15-year-old boy. I'm not saying this happened to me, but I'm just saying, like, you demand that the child is honest with you. You will not accept dishonesty from your children under any circumstances, no matter how small. I will not accept that. And you demand that he apologize sincerely. That's all you can do. And by the way, that's what you yourself are required to do. It's just not complicated. And last thing I'll say is, because that is not required in Washington, because no one is willing to admit fault for anything, and because no one is ever punished for doing evil or lying, we keep getting farther and farther off course. So the Iraq War, clear disaster. People of good faith, including me, supported it. We were wrong. Because they won't admit that, by and large, we're off to some other war. Under the same false pretenses, serving the same master, which is not America at all. It's the Israeli government. No, that's not anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Semitic. No one's ever found a single anti-Semitic thing I've ever said, because I'm not anti-Semitic. And if I was, I'd probably just say so, but I'm not. I am opposed to making the same mistake again. Doing the Iraq War again. That's my bottom line concern. That's what this whole current argument is about. Is I said, no, I don't think we should have a regime change war with Iran. Not because I love Iran. I'm a Christian, not a Shiite. But because I don't think the last time was good for America. And, oh, you hate Jews. No, actually, it's just not true. And if it was true, I would say it. The opposite is true. I'm opposed to anti-Semitism as a Christian because it's immoral to hate people for how they were born. That's what we believe. But I'm also, like, just as a factual matter, that's just not true in my life if you saw who I was friends with. So they don't want to have a conversation. They refuse to have a conversation about the actual aim, which is using the U.S. military to overthrow someone else's government on behalf of another country. They don't want to have that conversation because nobody supports that. So instead, they immediately call you a bigot because no decent person supports anti-Semitism. So when they call you an anti-Semite, people are like, well, I may agree with him on X, Y, and Z, but I'm opposed to anti-Semitism. So it's a way of avoiding the argument and then winning a separate, unrelated argument. And I'm not intimidated by it. I've seen it so many times, including with Pat Buchanan. I participated in it with Pat Buchanan to my great shame. I apologized to his face many times. He became my friend. But I know what that is because I've seen it a lot, because I've been around a long time. And I'm never going to bow before that because my conscience is clear.
Amen. I can sense it being in the same room with you. That is very sincere too.
It was totally sincere. What's the point at this point in my life? All my kids are grown. I'm not doing this for any other reason other than I think it's true.
Amen.